Welcome to Data Analysis Made Easy with Microsoft Power Tools. That's right, game with MPT number 7. And in this video, we got to talk all about dashboards. Now, here's the crazy thing. It's been about 10 years since I used PowerPoint for a class. But I want to go through the guidelines for building dashboards. But first, what is a dashboard? Well, we've already talked about this in this class, but let's remind ourselves. It's one location where we can present useful information and metrics for making decisions. Over here, we have a year-over-year sales dashboard. By month, here's the visual. By month, here's all the detail. And down here, we have year-over-year change by product. When new data arrives, the dashboard can be refreshed. So when we get 2025, we simply click refresh. Now, we all know about dashboards in cars. So think about it. It's just like a dashboard in a car. A dashboard should present information that is required for making good decisions. Now, the guidelines. Here are the guidelines. We'll go through each one of these. Now, what is the purpose of a dashboard? Well, it's the same as all data analysis, to provide actionable information to decision makers. To determine the purpose, we ask the consumers of the potential dashboard, what questions do you need answered? Well, if the question is, how did sales this year compare to last year? We might give them a dashboard like this. We might ask, what information do you need? Well, if they need information about average daily and monthly sales across various attributes, we might give them a dashboard like this. Where might they need insight? Well, if they ask, what is the GPA and grade distribution for quantitative business classes at Highline College over the last 20 years, we might give them this dashboard. Now, we'll build all three of those dashboards. But first, let's talk about the most common visuals. In general, goals can be achieved with just 4 visuals. Yes, that's right. Column bar, line, tables, and numbers. Now, other visuals are helpful, but are specific to a particular topic. XY scatter, bullet, and waterfall. But in general, these 4 can be applied in most situations to solve most dashboard visualization problems. Now, the column and bar is simple. It shows differences across categories. Here's a pie. It's hard to see the differences. Don't use pies or area. The column and bar, much easier to see differences. Now, as far as a line chart, that shows the change or trends over time. As simple as that. Tables, well, they have labels and numbers to show more detail than visuals. Here, we want to see every little detail for last year, this year, and year-over-year change. Numbers. Important numbers should be displayed somewhere in cards. These are the important numbers, so we display them nice and big in our dashboard. Now, the most important guideline for dashboards include only dashboard elements that help deliver your message. I usually add too much right up front, so I usually say it this way. Remove all elements that don't help deliver your message. Now, Edward Tufte had a lot to say about this. The data ink ratio. Data ink divided by total ink should be close to 1. It is the ink that delivers the useful information in the numerator divided by all ink. That's the useful info and the junk. That ratio's got to be close to 1. And then Edward Tufte also said, no chart junk. Remove all extraneous elements. Now, let's think about the data ink ratio first. This chart has too much ink. These lines, if we need them, are much too dark. Frequency and grade, well, it's already stated up here. So guess what? If we did the division in the numerator, that's all the useful information. That's everything without the lines and repetition. And then in the denominator, info plus junk, So let's say with all the useful information we get 6, information plus junk is 8. That's not close to 1. This is what we want. Info in the numerator, and we took out the junk, so now we have info in the denominator. 6 divided by 6 equals 1. Now that's one way to think of it. Remove all chart junk is the other. Unnecessary repetition. Well, in this chart, we have axis numbers, and they're repetitive if we want the data labels at the top of the columns. So, of course, we would remove them. Now, there's a trade-off. The data labels at the top of the column give us more detail. If you want more detail, that's good. Remove that axis. But if you want less detail, keep the axis, remove the data labels. Are there clear labels? Well, guess what? This is implied. We don't really need it. And what is this? So we take the month out because we don't really need it, and we add a label. What about grid lines? Here are some grid lines. Do they help? Probably not. And what about the worst of them all? 3D charts. Now, there aren't any 3D charts in Power BI, but there are in Excel. Here's the worst chart ever. You see, we have some proportions, and this is going to be bigger than this, even if they're the same size, because it's tilted on its side. Now, just for fun, you go ahead and try and count how many rules are violated here. Now, refine your dashboard. We want to talk about each one of these in turn. Now, is there content that does not deliver the message? Well, here's a dashboard, but guess what? That right there is not related to the year-over-year information. So we remove it. Message is much easier to understand. Are there too many elements in the dashboard? Well, here we have this silly little description and note. It is related to the other elements, but we don't need it. That is too many elements. So we remove it. Keep it simple. Is there inconsistent color? Well, guess what? In this one, there is not. The colors actually help group all of the average monthly sales, and over here a different color helps group all of the average daily sales. Now, the top left corner is where the eyes tend to look first, so put important elements in the top left. Well, if this is important, might as well put it in the upper left. That's much better. Group-related information so the dashboard is easy to navigate. Hey, we put all the GPA information here. Here, we put the grade frequency information. Now, differences between numbers should be material. So round so you can see the difference. Well, that's OK, but this might be better. In regards to numbers, give context to the numbers. Did we meet our goal? How is it compared to last period? Those are fine, but if we want to compare to last period, that's much better. And in conclusion, keep it simple. Include only dashboard elements that help deliver your message. Use column, bar, line, tables, and numbers, and also other ones when you have specific needs. Remove all unnecessary repetition. Label those elements clearly and avoid repetition. Use consistent styles and color. Group related content. Top left is where the eye goes first. And use numbers with material differences and give those numbers context. All right, now we're going to jump over and make 3 different dashboards. Now, when you download the zip folder, you get all these files. There's a start, that's the one we're going to use, and a solution. Not only that, but all of these are linked to that Excel file. The Excel file has the tables. So this is the first file we're going to open. When you open it, you'll see the formula sheet, and you want to go up to Transform Data, Data Source Settings. And you got to link your Power BI file using Change Sources and the Browse button to your computer. Now, for this first example, the question or the goal is to create a dashboard that shows average monthly sales and average daily sales across 3 attributes: sales rep, product, and customer. Now, in the Power BI desktop file, I've already created the data model. And throughout this class, we learned how to do all of this. If we go over to report, we have three formulas: total sales, average daily sales, and average monthly sales. If we go over and look, well, total sales is sum x calculating the sales. Average monthly sales, well, we learned that lovely formula before. And average daily sales, we learned this formula also. Let's go over to average daily sales. By the way, Microsoft has a place up in Power BI Online called a dashboard. But it doesn't matter where your dashboard is, if it's online, in Power BI Desktop, or in Excel. They're all dashboards because it doesn't matter where it is. If it serves the purpose of a dashboard, it's a dashboard. All right, here we are in our tab. And the first visual we want to create, actually we want to create the card at the top. So I'll come over and click card, move it a little bit closer to our data and visualization area. And from F sales, we'll do average daily sales. Format, call out value, maybe down to 36. We'll resize it. Bring it over somewhere on this side. Control C to copy, Control V, and we'll change it from average daily sales to average monthly sales. Now, the cool thing about this dashboard is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 column charts, and they're all going to have exactly the same structure. So I'm going to click in the white clustered column, and we'll do the 3 average daily sales. We'll come over to sales rep, check sales rep, average daily sales. Now we have a bunch of chart junk. Since we're going to have average daily sales and average monthly sales at the top, up in the title, format, general, title, let's show just the particular attribute. So sales rep, that's looking good. The axis labels are described somewhere else, here and over here. So we go over to format, visual. For the X, we'll say we don't want a title, gone. Here, we are going to put detail at the top, so we'll remove both the axis and the label. Here's Y. Values, not there. Title, not there. And visual, down to data labels and simply on. Now, we are going to have 1, 2, 3. So something like that. And now, I can Control C, Control V. And we come over to the fields. I definitely don't want sales rep. I want this measure. Come over to products. We'll use products. Control V to paste again. We'll drag down here. We don't want sales rep. We want customer. Now we want to arrange them. Those red lines over here in Power BI Desktop are better than any other of the Microsoft tools. Look at that. We're going to line it all up perfectly. Now let's select this. Control C, Control V. And now sales rep is what we want, but we want to remove the measure. Total monthly sales, Control C, Control V. We have the right measure, but we'll get rid of the attribute. This will be products. Control V. Get rid of the attribute, and now we have customer. We'll try and line it up center with the label above, and the line on the top is lining up with the visual next to it. Oh, this is so amazing. Look at those red lines. Perfect. Now let's differentiate this particular group of related content. I'm going to hold the Control key, click, click, format, down to columns. And let's try maybe this color right here. Wow, that is looking good. Now I move things around a little bit. We still have 2 things to change. We've got to change the title on each. And I'd like to make this a little bit wider. So I'm going to drag it to the side so that I can see the full customer name there. And now with this selected, I want to go up to Format, General, Properties. And there it is. The width is 505. So I'm simply going to select each chart, change it to 505. Now we have each one at 505. Now we need to change the title for each. This is customer. And we'll do the same trick. We'll just select and then change. Product. All right, so I changed the title for each. Now I want to add a little slicer to the bottom. Click in the white. There's the slicer. I would like year. We'll change it to not a slider bar, but tile. Bring it down to the bottom. I want to make it very small so it doesn't interfere with the rest of the dashboard. And so now 2025, 2024. Now I forgot up when we created the first one to add something to the tooltip. Up to fields. There's the tooltip. Let's drag total sales down the tooltip. And then I have to do it for each one. So that was a hassle. I had to redo it for each one. But now we have a tooltip showing total sales and average monthly sales. And for the other visuals, we'll see average daily sales. Now, we can select a particular visual, go up to Format, and decide how the other visuals interact with this one. The default is to highlight, and that's what I want. We'll definitely edit the interaction in one of the other dashboards. So let's talk about something that we've already talked about, but that is spectacular about Power BI Desktop and Power BI Online. Here's Whole Foods, and we want to talk about highlighting. When I click Whole Foods, well, in 2024, the average monthly sales to Whole Foods, 61K. But look at this. Whole Foods condition and 2024 went over to product Cherry's average monthly sales. So the average monthly sales in 2024 to Whole Foods markets for the Cherry product, 25K. Not only that, but these two conditions jumped over here to the average daily sales. So in 2024 to Whole Food markets, the average daily sales of oranges was 38K. And notice when I hover my cursor, wow, the highlighted number is in there. Not only that, but the engine behind the scenes, without even creating the formula, actually is doing filter context and calculating all three amounts. Now, also, when we highlight, notice some of the highlighted areas are as wide as the original bar, and sometimes they're skinnier. Yeah, hover, and notice that the highlighted area, which is Whole Foods 2024 Cherry, that number is taller than the original average daily sales of 8,100. So in that case, it's very clever. They show it skinnier but taller. That way you can still see the underlying amount. Also, visually, what does this mean? It's actually a visual proportion. It's not showing you the actual number, the actual proportion, but visually you can see, hey, that amount compared to that amount. Over here also, that skinny sky blue bar divided by the shorter, wider light blue bar. So here we have these filtering visuals. That just is amazing. You can't do that in Excel. And I also want to point out a second thing that's amazing about Power BI Desktop and Power Pivot, and that is DAX. If we go look at average daily sales, that is a simple and beautiful formula. Through the relationships and filter context, that formula is allowed to handle all these different conditions. If we go look in Excel, there's the formula we have to calculate just for this particular calculation. That is much more difficult than the DAX formula. Now, DAX is the hardest of all the formula languages to learn, but it gives us real power in certain business calculations. We create a simple formula, and then the relationships and filter context handle all the complex conditions and criteria. So we're glad that we have Power BI Desktop and DAX. All right, we're going to create our second dashboard, the grade dashboard. Now I'm going to switch it up for this dashboard. This one looks a lot neater than this one, and it has the frequency and the GPA, but I'm going to add a new chart right here that shows 3-year moving average, of course, to ask the question, is there grade inflation? All right, let's open this file. Now in table view, we have a fact table with the course, the decimal grade, academic year, and grading category. In model view, I had to add not a date table, but a year table so we can calculate 3-year moving GPA average. And then over in report view, we could look at the formulas. GPA is just an average. Standard deviation is just on the decimal grade. As we'll see, standard deviation tells us the variation or spread in the data points when we calculate GPA. Frequency, well, of course, we just use count rows on the fact table. And if you want to check it out, this is the formula I created for 3-year moving average. All right, let's go over to Quant Business Class Analysis tab. All right, let's create our multi-row card for GPA and standard deviation. GPA, standard deviation, and we want it by course. Over to format the values first, call out values. I'm going to make them nice and big, 36. That'll do. Call out labels. I don't know, something like 17. And down under card, there's the title, something like 17. All right, we have our card in the upper left-hand corner. I added some bold to those measure numbers also. Now let's create our frequency distribution to see the shape of how the grades are distributed. We'll use clustered column, grade category in the X. Frequency, that's our count in the Y. We can already see that shaping up. And because we want 2 of these, we're going to drag course down to small multiples. This isn't in Excel. Now let's go over to formatting, small multiples. We definitely only want 1 row. That's looking good. I want to change the columns. So in small multiples, we'll scroll down. Columns. There's color, something like a red-brown. That'll differentiate the frequency from our moving average and our GPA. Now let's get rid of this chart junk. Up to X, we do not want a title. Y, I don't want a title or the values. We'll close that, and then we'll scroll down, and I definitely want data label. Let's change the title. So over to General. We want it to say GPA frequency. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Let's move this down to the left corner. All right, let's create our line chart for GPA. There's the line chart. We want year in the x-axis, GPA down to Y, and course down into the legend. That's looking good. I see some chart junk. I don't think we need either one of the labels. So format. X, title, Y, we'll get rid of the title. And then up in general, let's see, so we have GPA. All we need is grade GPA. Year is implied. GPA will come from the title, and we have the names of the 2 courses there. Grade GPA. And that's looking pretty good. Now let's do our grade inflation line chart. I want year down in the X. And I want to plot both GPA and the 3-year moving average. But it looks like it's straight up. Somewhere in here, the grades just started going up, and then they kind of flattened off. Now I resized it, got rid of the labels and the title because it's implied by this little legend here. Now we want a slicer down here, so I click in the white. We'll add a slicer for year and change it to tiles. Format, slicer settings, tiles, and then resize it. All right, now that's looking good, but if we go to the year slicer, well, these are working fine, but uh-oh, we do not want those to change. This is where we need to change the interaction between the visuals. So I select the slicer, format. Oh, it's on. So I come up and say do not filter. And I'm going to pull this one down, select the slicer, and do not filter. So now if I click 1988, sure enough, these stay. However, if I come down here and click, I want to see just 3.5 to 4, sure enough, those are changing. We did not change the interaction between those 2. Now, once the dashboard is finished, of course, in Home, I publish it to my workspace. I share it with my colleagues. They go through and look, and they come to their own conclusion. Now, Let's look at the overall data, right? Overall, for all the years, it sort of looks bell-shaped. GPA is almost the same. The standard deviation, the spread in the data is exactly the same. As for GPA, in the early years, it was kind of intertwined. But somewhere along the line, the blue line, that's Business 210, that's a transfer level class. The light blue, that's not a transfer level class, and they just completely diverged. As far as the overall grades for both classes, bam, they just kind of went up in the late 90s and then stayed flat. Let's look at 1988. Whoa, that's definitely not bell-shaped. That's more uniform. We go through 1991. That's uniform too. Somewhere, there we go. We start to see some bell shape. Looks like a little skew for the Business 210 classes on the upper end. Always pulling the mean up. So in 2005, it looks like the GPA for 210 was 2.5 with a standard deviation of 0.7. And for Business 135, 2.0. Now, for 2005, I can come down here. Let's look, since this is the tallest one here. This is going to filter everything except for this. I want to look at just the grades from 2 to 2.5. Wow, so through all the years, more volatility. How about the 4.0 range? Whoa, straight up. So it's those high-end grades that seem to definitely be on the upper end. So we have our grade dashboard. We can interact. Everything changes. Bam, we're done. Now let's look at our third dashboard. Now over here in Excel, here's our end result for our year-over-year sales dashboard. We have a date table of product and some sales. That's the file you can open up to follow along. Now over here on the Formula tab, there's our formulas. Total sales is just sum. Last year sales, we saw how to create this formula using same period last year. And the helper column in the date table for partial year sales. We don't have any partial year sales, but I put it there anyway. Year-over-year change. I wanted to turn it off in the year where there were no previous sales. And since last year's sales evaluates to a blank when it's here because there's nothing in the previous year, if you put that in the beginning of the if when it's blank, it goes to the end and uses the default blank. Otherwise, any number it delivers, that's of course true in DAX and the Excel worksheet, so I just run the formula. Year-over-year percentage change, just as we did before, we used has one value. And because in the card, we're going to have the year-over-year change, I did the same thing. If year-over-year change, if it evaluates to blank, then it's going to go to the end, and I'm going to show a dash. Otherwise, just run the measure. So over in year-over-year tab, I'm going to start with a text box, year-over-year sales, and I'm going to change the font to something big, 36. Control-B for bold. That'll be our little title in the upper left. I created two cards, one with this year's sales and one with our year-over-year percentage change for the card. We'll put these in the upper left. Now we want to create a table with all of the detail, so actually a matrix. And I want to drag year and month, but I got to show you how to create a hierarchy. That way we can combine them, drag once, and it drags both. It also helps in some visuals. We'll go over to year, create hierarchy. There it is. Come to month, add to hierarchy. There it is. And there it is. We have year and month. So I'll drag this to rows. Sure enough, right-click, expand all. Both year and month are there. Resize this, and that's looking good. We want everything. This year, last year, the actual change, and the percent year-over-year change. Now I'm going to resize this because we're going to have a slicer that shows just 1 year at a time. So I'm going to show the grand total right at the bottom. Now, I want to use the filter, that's this right here, to filter out 2020 for a number of the visuals. I just don't want all the blanks. So we'll open up filter. And I want to filter for this entire page. So I'm going to drag the year, not the year hierarchy, over here. Scroll down. We want greater than. We'll type 2020. And apply filter. And sure enough, everything on this page will be filtered to not show 2020. Now let's create our visual to show for each month the year-over-year change. We're going to drag the hierarchy over to X, and then just year-over-year percentage change down to Y. Make it pretty big. And now we can drill down all the way to the bottom. And there we have year and month. Now let's clean this up, get rid of these labels, change the title, and add data labels. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's click and add a slicer for year and show it as tile. All right, so we have our slicer. There's 2021, 2022, and so on. Now our last element is to add a bar chart. We want to show product and same thing, year-over-year change. And we'll clean it up. And I always add the data labels at the top. But if you like it down here to be less cluttered, by all means do that. Now that's looking pretty good. But let's differentiate this particular visual from the year-over-year by month and year with a color. So over to Visuals. There's our bars. I'm just going to change it to a dark blue. And there, that is looking good. 2022, 2023, 24. Definitely looks like for all those years we were up. It was only 2021 where we had some products where the sales went down year over year. And of course, we can publish this to our workspace and share it with whoever we want. All right, this was an epic video. We did 1, 2, and 3 dashboards. And we started it all off with those dashboard guidelines. All right, we'll see you next Dame video.